Hey, how's it going? Welcome into the Irish NFL show. Thursday night, we're doing our Sunday preview tonight ahead of week 4 of the NFL season. Michael McQuaid, Colin Cronin, Brian O'Leary. Mark's Wi Fi is down, I think. I'm not sure where he's at, but it's all good in the hood. One less audio file to edit. Took 2.5 hours to edit last
I
night, so it's
I
all good.
I think my Mark is maybe he was over. He's the one who was recording those Dolphins plays secretly against the Bengals. Though Tom Pelissero has said this evening that the Dolphins realized and that they had 12 men on the field, but maybe that explains where Mark is.
Brian, just for people watching this live, if you're listening to this in the podcast for a start, folks, presented by Cassidy Travel, check out the bio for the best travel deals to get from Ireland to the States for NFL games or Munich as well. Brian, people listening to this podcast are listening on a Sunday morning in full. In this full podcast, and London's later on today. But for everyone watching live, hello. And Brian, we can see the picks ahead of Thursday Night Football columns relating to their Dolphins Bengals. Why am I the only person going with the Bengals? It's just
I, I do, I do, I do get why you're going with the Bengals, Michael. I can see the narrative. I can see the reasoning behind it. It's 4 days off a difficult game for the Dolphins. There's a lot of injuries on the Dolphins side. I think at this stage too is going to play, but will he be fully fit after what happens on Sunday? Who knows? So, I can understand why you went with the Bengals, but we're going with the hot hand. I think that's fair to say with the Dolphins.
let's get straight into it, and time will tell what happens there. We're going to look at a number of games tonight ahead of the Week 4 slate on Sunday. The Week 4 slate on Sunday gets underway at 2:30 Irish time, 2:30 UK time. Obviously, the game being in London at Tottenham. The Saints and the Vikings will be there on Sunday. We'll go through that game on Sunday, obviously, live. At Tottenham, 9:30 Sunday morning. It starts around 9:30 a.m. If you're looking to get the picks on the Browns Falcons, the Bills Ravens, and the Commanders against the Eagles, they're on Thursday night's podcast. But if you're on the podcast network, that's been split into different sections, so you can just check it out in the podcast network or go back to YouTube, and Colin has very politely put them into segments. So Gurmy, right, let's get right down to it, lads. I think the first game we're going to talk about here is the Seahawks against the Lions. Now, Colin, Seattle had their Super Bowl 3 weeks ago, and they've been an interesting team to watch since. They played the Niners week 2, they played the Falcons week 3, lost against the Falcons, whereas the Lions were unlucky last week. They got into the lead against Minnesota, who are in London this weekend, couldn't hold it out. This is a nice matchup for the Lions, isn't it, going into week 4?
Well, it should be, and in some ways, it's a nice matchup for the Seahawks as well. I mean, what you're looking at, I suppose, in this game is essentially the fact that you have the number 2 offense in terms of points, the number 3 in terms of total offense, going up against the team that's 28th in terms of points and in terms of total offense. If you go to rushing and passing, the Seahawks still don't get out of the 20s. The thing for Detroit is obviously they gave up a huge number of points. There's still work to do on that side of the ball, and Dan Campbell put up his hands in terms of he had been very aggressive, but he got away from it ultimately last week, and he feels that cost them the game. The Lions, the line has been so impressive, and that has kind of been, I suppose, what has really helped them. So look, Swift has the shoulder injury, but I think that line will open up holes for kind of anyone to run through. And so for me, we know, and it's kind of joked about, it might have been Kevin Clark who first kind of coined that the Seahawks never play a normal game. And I imagine that it'll be something like this here. Anything could happen. But I think that this Lions team have enough on offense and will score too many points for the Seahawks to challenge them. So I'm going to say the Lions win.
Yeah, Colin mentions DeAndre Swift, but Williams, the other running back, has had a really good start to the season. They've got a 1-2 punch there, and was Swift and Amari St. Brown are getting all the kind of coverage and all the accolades. Williams is doing a fine job there in the backfield as well. He had 2 touchdowns I think last week in that game as well. The previous week when they're at home against Washington. They're going up against defenses in the bottom 12. We're seeing the Seahawks offense play reasonably well in flashes. They played well the first half. In week 1 against the Broncos, which you referred to as their cup final, whatever you want to say. But last week, in fairness, in the first half, they looked quite good. Metcalf had a great touchdown. Did a very impressive opening drive where he went down. Disley, the tight end, caught the ball, touchdown, and then Fant had a reasonably good game. Juju used the safety for the Lions will be in for a game on Sunday because they seem to be finding ways to get their safeties involved. But one with column on this because the Lions, like we talked about Goff, and he had a difficult enough time last year, but towards the back end of the season, they're 4-3 over the course of the last 7 games. So they did finish the season strongly, and we've seen in the past teams that finish the season strongly. There's a bit of impetus there but then it's so long to the next season, it doesn't really materialise. But it has for the Lions, in fairness, offensively. 748 yards for Goff, 7 touchdowns. They're going in the right direction, and you're asking me which team. What do I think the Seahawks will win more games throughout the course of the season? I'm on the Lions here as well. I think they're too explosive offensively for the Seahawks to live with them. So the Lions to go back to 2-2.
How many games do you say Seattle was going to win this year? 9, 10? Have we got that?
9. You keep knocking on the extra game, Michael, in case I get the 9 right. But no, I said 9.
Sure. Here, will we just leave it in the middle and say 11? Yeah, is that the best bet?
I said 8. I'll drop it down to 8 now.
It would be funny if, like, mathematically they couldn't win that amount of games and we were sitting in Munich watching it at that point. If that game with Tom Brady is happening, it'll happen. Just will Tom be there? That's a discussion point for another night. Really been impressed with Jared Goff so far this season. Over 700 passing yards in 3 games. He does have a 58% completion rate, which doesn't sound amazing, but he just looks a lot more confident, and we're seeing better play than what we're used to from him, which is a good point for him. St. Brown, lads, Amon-Ra is just class, and I really, really enjoy watching this offense for the Lions. Hutchinson looks at home. I'm not saying the Seahawks have nothing going for them. Like, Tyler Lockett has got 21 catches for 211 yards, but he hasn't scored a touchdown through 3 games. So they're almost like they're plugging, but they can't get the full plug, if that makes sense. That's a really, really bad saying. However, I don't think the Seahawks are good at all. I didn't think they were good week 1. I don't think they're good now week 4, and I think they were lucky in week 1 to win. I think they should have been beaten by a larger deficit last week against the Falcons, and I think that Detroit will win this game comfortably on Sunday. That's the way I see it. Mark is going with the Lions. I should have checked who Hoagie's going for, but I haven't got it on the screen, so apologies, mate. But yeah, it's a full house in the Lions for this broadcast anyway, and it's been a while since we've had a full house, isn't it? It's been a long time, lads. No?
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised that we have a full house on it, but there you go.
Awesome. Right, here we go. The next game is the Chargers against who are the Chargers playing?
Texans.
I'm asking this because the graphic has got columns picked, so I can't go on to it yet.
Chargers are travelling to the Texans.
Oh, here it is here. Nope.
You're off.
The graphics will be back next week. Chargers Texans. Colin, this is an intriguing game because Chargers need to pick up a win after last week. We don't know how the Chiefs will fare in Sunday Night Football against Tom Brady. The Broncos and the Raiders playing each other. So for the Chargers, this is a huge game in the West. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is, but you almost get the feeling that the Chargers really are cursed. I mean, more players potentially lost for the entirety of the season this week, and a team that did a whole host of work in the off season. We talked about the things just seem to happen to them. It doesn't seem to matter on the location, and you hate seeing players injured, and you just wonder, can they overcome it? If they were playing anyone else in the league, I think you'd be asking serious questions. But the Texans had the opportunity to beat the Bears last week, and they couldn't do it. They had the opportunity to beat the Broncos, and they couldn't do it. And I just don't think this Texans team has the offense to do it. We saw last year, obviously, they managed it over the Chargers, but you can run all over this Texans team, and that's what I'm interested to see in this game, because the Chargers are averaging 59 yards a game on the ground. That's tiny. But the Texans are allowing over 200 yards per game. So the Chargers are the worst at rushing it, and the Texans are the worst at defending the run. To me, that will be interesting to see if the Chargers can finally get a spark on the ground. And because I think they have to win, I think this is an enormous game for them, given it is against the Texans and some of the games that they will face in their own division and in the weeks ahead. I'm going to say that the Chargers get the win, but I'm not saying that with a great deal of confidence.
This is the game that I've been torn about the most throughout the course of this
Is this
weekend.
the game that you texted me about today? Looking at
it was, yeah. To be honest, it was.
Come on, man.
It was, So for open transparency to people, we lock in our picks on Wednesdays. But I went with a team. If I had it back, I would have changed my mind. But no, I'm going to stick with them. I think there's valid reasons as to why the Chargers will win this game. And Eckler has had only 80 yards this season. At some stage, he has to kind of come to the party. They have to recognise the team as a whole. Herbert is injured. Slater's out for the season. Bosa's gone. The column is recognising concerns there. This is a team that they don't win soon in the division that they're in. I called that they wouldn't make the playoffs this year. I stand by that. I don't think this Chargers team are going to make the playoffs because the Chargers are the Chargers. And in particular with that head coach there, don't rate him at all. Fine, just can't get my head around why people are in love with him so much. The Texans, whilst they're 0-2-1, they've come close to winning some games, and they've been in a lot of games, and I can see them in this game. But I think this game is a big one for the Chargers. I know it's only week 4. People can say there's a lot of time to go, but bearing in mind that you've got Chiefs looking to rebound, you've got a AFC West clash, which we're going to get to later on, which takes place in Vegas. One of those teams are going 2-2, and whilst they're not behind the 8 ball too much, if they don't get this game over the line, bearing in mind the schedule that's coming up, it's one that I've got away. Week 16, 41-29 to the Texans. I think it probably wouldn't be as big a shock as it was back then, even though this Chargers team have a lot more players from what we saw last year, and the defense is supposed to be secured. I'll lean Chargers, but I'm not confident about it. I think they might still struggle on it, but they'll find a way to get it over the line. Michael, you picking the Texans, yeah?
Honestly, I'm not. I'm going to pick the Chargers in this one, but basically because I think Justin Herbert, even if he's back to about 85% of where he needs to be, he'll swing it down the field 4 or 5 times, and they'll just put points up on the board. Now, maybe that might not happen, but I'm in a case where I think the Chargers will go out with a game plan to score 35 to 42 points in this game and honestly blow out the Texans. Now, that being said, Davis Mills he's got 3 touchdowns this season, so he's got the same amount of passing touchdowns as Tom Brady has all season. But he does look, in terms of the quarterback class that he's in there, he looks confident. It's not an elite offense in any shape or form of the word, but the Texans do seem more comfortable under Davis Mills and Lovie Smith. The question is, can they go up against this Chargers defense? Khalil Mack's at 3.5 sacks this year already, and put up anywhere from 26 to 32 points. I don't think they can. I think that they'll be, I don't want to say annihilated, but I think they'll have a very, very difficult time of it. And I feel that when you've got Williams and Eckler and the fact that Justin Herbert can make Justin Herbert type plays at any point in the game, I think that's dangerous. And for me, I find it really intriguing that you're saying you think the Chargers are going to miss playoffs. Week 4, man. I mean, the Raiders are 0-3 for a start. I mean, come on. I think the Chargers, I still think the Chargers will win the West. That's genuinely, I do. And that's just from looking at their schedule. But I'm picking the Chargers to win the game. Mark Cockrell is picking the Chargers, and I still have not found time to click on to find out Hoagie's picks, so I'm just going to keep going. Sorry, mate.
I think we probably know
it. 4 for 4.
Yeah, I was just going to say about Davis Mills, he has been impressive, over the course of a few games and towards the back end of last season. But at times, his decision making. I mean, the game in Denver, you could argue they had him there as well to win that game. Just couldn't punch it in for a touchdown. Seemed to just make the wrong decision with throws. And then last week, obviously, they won with a minute to go. That was careless last week with the Roquan Smith, interception. You got to recognise the minute to go and be a bit more secure and be careful around the ball, in particular where they were at the time on that 20-yard line. But look, the Texans have got a bit of a surprise there, in early picking the 3rd round, who has now established himself as a number 1 quarterback and potentially could be there for a couple of years. So, but he probably needs to get over the hump as well and win a game like this to kind of signify exactly where he is going forward.
Can't wait for the text on Sunday night when Brian's like, "Oh, I told you the Texans were going to win." When no, they're not going to win. Anyway, that's the end of this podcast segment. If you are listening, please do check out the other segments, and really appreciate your support, folks. Like, share, subscribe, podcast video, and we'll see you on the next segment. So the next game that we're going to talk about tonight in terms of Week 4 Sunday is the Tennessee Titans going up against the Indianapolis Colts. Titans and Colts have an interesting start to the season. You've got two different teams here in the sense column where Tannehill's been there for a good while now. There's a lot of expectation around this Titans team last season, and there was a lot of expectation from the neutral standpoint this season that they were going to take a step down. They did in the first few weeks. They look a bit better last week. The Colts offensive line is, I feel bored now talking about it that much, that it just doesn't look great. Matt Ryan struggled until last week, and he still did not play that well last week apart from that last drive. There are issues in both teams, and it's going to be an intriguing game because it's a game where the Colts are under pressure to win based on last week, and their defense came up really, really big against the Chiefs. But how can they turn it on against a Derrick Henry led offense where he could just run through them? That's the question.
Well, yeah, they're going to have to find a way to stop Derrick Henry because on his day, he's capable of running over anybody. But it is possible to stop him. He isn't invincible. And certainly if anyone has seen Jim Irsay's tweets this afternoon, he is calling on the Colts faithful to play a significant part in this. He's asking for it to be the loudest game of his tenure, his ownership of the Colts. And I think that'll be a factor because neither of these teams are playing particularly well. We expected more from the Colts. I think really a lot of talk that they were going to win this division for the first time since 2014. But offensively, we haven't yet seen it. Certainly, you're right, Michael, that the defense showed up big time last week to hold Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs to 17 points was very, very good. And they did that without Shaquille Leonard, which makes it probably even more impressive. I had definitely a bit of a wobble yesterday when I heard Jonathan Taylor had missed practice. Apparently, it's the first time he's ever missed practice, be it high school, college, or the NFL. But he was full go today, which is a relief for the Colts. I really think this is one of the, and I think there are a few games like that this week. Just a coin flip game. I'm going to go with the Colts because they're at home. And I think they need it. But then I thought the Raiders needed it more last week, and the Titans did it. As long as Mike Vrabel is there, the Titans will be super competitive. But I'm going to say the Colts get the win on Sunday.
Like Derrick Henry, he's flattered to save this year. Like last week, people were kind of saying, "Oh, he looked back to himself," but a lot of numbers were, I would say, inflated last week. The reality is, he's still, in terms of rushing, he only had 85 yards rushing. He got another 60 in terms of receptions, but he doesn't tend to do too many receptions. Week 1, he was held to 82 by the Giants. If he's not playing well, that team is essentially not playing well, and then they're reliant on Tannehill. Tannehill's numbers against Matt Ryan, and we discussed Matt Ryan and the flaws, how we expected more from him. They're very similar: 647, 769, 3 touchdowns each, 3 interceptions, 4 interceptions. Neither of them are playing better. I thought Matt Ryan came back to himself a little bit last week because the offensive line, once it was struggling for large parts of the game, he still had the experience to get that drive against a formidable Chiefs team to win that game. I look at the players on the outside and wide receivers and who they got: Burks, Woods, Phillips. I mean, this was a concern with this Titans team going into the season. The drop off from AJ Brown could be significant. Where I see other players on Pittman, for example, with the Colts, attractive player, kind of expect to make a big step up. They had a rookie last week, 2 touchdowns. I see more reasons why the Colts should win this game. And defensively last week were solid, and I expect a similar performance this week. So I'm with the Colts here as well.
Mark C is going with the Colts as well. It's a full house with us. Why do you look so surprised with Mark going for the Colts?
I just didn't think Mark would. I thought he's obviously Bill Belichick and Vrabel and the coaching tree. I thought he might lean into the Titans.
No, but it's a it's a neutral broadcast. We can't have our affiliations with the teams that we support, so I understand how Mark is going for the Colts. That was a hilarious joke. Hogan's going with the Chargers. No, he's not going with the Chargers. He's going with the Titans. So at least somebody's going with the Titans on this internet sphere. I'm going with the Colts because I think the home crowd will be the factor for them. I think the defense will come up again. That being said, I don't rate the Colts as highly as I did. And it'll be intriguing to see over the next few weeks how the Jaguars will maybe propel themselves further in this division. They won't win this weekend against Philadelphia, but over the next few weeks they've got a chance to win some games, including the game in London, which I think they've got a great chance to win personally as it stands at the minute. So let's see how it goes. I think that about Jonathan Taylor, he'll be grand. It'll be 100%. I think it's one of those coin flip games, as you said, Colin, but the Colts will win by a field goal. And to make it even more of a guesswork, there'll be a double doink from one of the teams. How's that for gamble?
Interesting. The Titans beat them twice last year. You know, over the course of the few years leading up to that, it was always they'd always kind of take a game off each other, and the game they usually win was, strange enough, was on the road. But last year the Titans had their number twice. You know, Carson Wentz made a lot of mistakes in this particular game when it was in Indy last year. I don't think Matt Ryan's the type of quarterback that will make those type of mistakes. I think ultimately he'll get them over the line.
Yeah, I think the Colts need to win this game as well. So time will tell. Bears Giants. This game is at MetLife, Brian, is it? Or? Yeah, okay. So Bears Giants, Justin Fields going into MetLife. Colin, where do we start with this matchup?
I think where you start with it is it'll be played on the ground, certainly. When you look at both of these teams, they're both run first. I saw a tweet from our friend Sam Monson earlier who highlighted, and yes, Bears fans, you have a winning record. But he did highlight that Justin Fields has 297 passing yards in 3 games. QBs have exceeded that in one game 19 times this season. 4 QBs have done it multiple times, and even Geno Smith has done it. We've talked about it before. You've got to go back to the 80s to find as few completions through the first 3 games, but realistically, this is football from the 70s. I'm sure for Bears fans, they won't care as long as they, keep winning. If they keep above 500, why would they care? But I do not believe that the Giants will be as generous as the Texans were last week. We know what Daniel Jones is. We know he's not going to be there next year, but I believe in Brian Dable and his roster more than Lovie Smith and his roster. And so I am going to say that the Giants get the win in this one.
Brian, Hogan's picking the Bears. Just wanted to put that out there so you can tell us why the Giants are going to win.
What a surprise. What an absolute surprise. Hogan picks against the Giants. Yeah. I am picking the Giants. No, I am. But I don't think it's down to the fact that the Giants are a great football team. I think it's more down to the fact that we're playing a lesser football team. Cole Kmet had a really good game last week for the Bears as running back when Montgomery went down the game. But essentially, he is right now the be all and end all for this Bears team because they have to run the ball, like Colin said. And the Giants was Leonard Williams is out, and he's our standout player defensive line in terms of stopping the run. Big loss. Looks like he could be back for the game in London, which is great to see. I think they'll find a way to stop them, and then you're putting it in the hands of Justin Fields. I think it's the lowest over-under in terms of passing, in terms of completions for a quarterback yards in years. It's 120. That's the over-under on Justin Fields on Sunday in terms of yards on the game. The Giants are struggling offensively as well. I mean, you say that Daniel Jones won't be there next year. He won't be there next year, but by golly, right now he's doing his utmost to make sure he is there because his performance on Monday was, let's be honest, it was fantastic. You can say what you like about the offense. The wide receivers on Sunday, Slayton, Stills, Jesse James. Galladay won't be playing, or will only get like 12 snaps a game. And Saquon is ultimately the guy that will win us the game, and we have to lean on him and imagine that's what will happen in the course of the game. I think Giants defense will play well enough to hold the Bears in check. The Giants will get a win, but it won't be an impressive game, shall we say.
Yeah, just going back on what Colin said, the whole Justin Fields 297 passing yards in 3 games with 2 touchdowns and 4 interceptions is. I don't care that there was a monsoon week 1. That's an abomination, lads. Like, that is an absolute abomination. Now, it's not Justin Fields' fault because they haven't built an offense around him, and that's why I have consistently been down on this team, because there's no care for his development. Albeit it's a short window. You bring in a new GM, you bring in a new head coach. It takes time to implement certain players, but they haven't protected them, and it hasn't worked out for them, and it's not going to work out for them this season. Now, how can they win this game on Sunday? Ironically, they get the ball down the field with Justin Fields. They won't do it. They'll try and run the ball, and Justin will throw a few picks. And Brian's right. Daniel Jones, it wasn't his fault on Monday. He made some really, really good plays at times in the game where it was difficult for him to get the ball down the field, and he's still done it. So fair play to him in that there. The Giants are more fun to watch, and that for any fan is a good thing, especially in the NFC East where Washington are completely gone with the Dogs completely. So it's interesting to watch. I feel that this game will not be won by the Giants in terms of the running game. I think you got like Daniel Bellinger, who's had 50 yards so far this season, just over 50 yards, 1 touchdown. I think like guys that got there will come in and win the game through Daniel Jones. I feel that they'll struggle in the run game on Sunday, but they're going in the right direction. There's no way in hell. There's more chance of me winning the Rose of Tralee than there is of that man starting a quarterback next year. That being said, they could release him somehow, mathematically, and bring him in at the $1 million. He's gone, lads. He's not coming back. He's not of the caliber for that team, and they'll bring somebody decent in. Mark is picking, and I'm picking the Giants as well. So, Jesus, the Bears are winning by how much, lads, is the question?
If we've all gone for them, the Bears are probably winning by double digits.
Well, one of us, and I say one of us because I have a lot of fans who are Bears fans. One of us is walking away from this game.
You have a lot of fans who are Bears fans.
Yeah, a lot of friends, shall I say? Sorry, a lot of friends. But one of us is walking away 3-1 on Sunday. 3-1 Giants. I'd say we're ahead of the curve in terms of where we would have thought we'd be. And if the Bears win at 3-1, bear in mind how, and not just ourselves, how critical of people are of them this season to be 3-1. The Bears fans will take it all day long. Who wouldn't?
No harm to the crack, but if the Bears are 3-1 come Sunday night, that's an absolute disgrace. Like, genuinely, Dable should walk out of New York if he loses this game.
And Mark will really want the Giants to win. He will really be desperate to see the Giants win, because Mark continuously goes on about the fact that we haven't seen 2 teams with a winning record in London for God knows how long. So, you assuming his team doesn't win on Sunday against the Packers, you might see 2 teams with a winning record next week.
That's the end of this podcast segment. If you want to get your popcorn and come back, we're about to pick the Jaguars-Eagles game, so we can't wait to hear this opinion. Join us in the podcast segment and see you in a minute. Colin, the Eagles are the best team in the NFL by a country mile at the minute. This is a foregone conclusion, this game, isn't it? Yeah? As good as Jacksonville were last week.
I think this could be game of the week. I really look. I've been on the Jalen Hurts Eagles train for quite a while, but I really like what the Jaguars have done. I mean, I picked them last week because I genuinely believed in them. I think when you look at this, and I saw it earlier, that the Eagles and the Jags are both top 7 in the league in total offense, scoring offense, total defense, and scoring defense. These are 2 really good teams. And if the Jags keep going the way they're going, then it could be the Chargers, it could be the Broncos, it could be the Colts. But some AFC team could well miss out in the playoffs, and the Jags could end up winning their own division because they have a really good defensive front. And I think they will bully a lot of teams. I think you saw over the last couple of weeks, I think, was it 62-10 is the combined score over the last couple of weeks. Like, that's a proper beatdown on the Chargers and the Colts, who, had so much love in the off season. They can mix and match, they can do things, but where I struggle to see them winning this is because you cannot bully the Eagles' offensive line. They are bullies themselves, as Washington found out to their detriment last week. I think this could be a really high-scoring game. But I like what the Eagles have on the defense. I like what they have done. You saw Smith step up last week. You've seen AJ Brown step up at other times. They have the tight ends. We talked about running back by committee. I don't think they'll blow them out by any stretch of the imagination. And if you were to say to me, could the Jags win? They could. But I'm going to say that 8 times out of 10, certainly it would be the Eagles, and the Jalen Hurts train continues to roll on.
Very interesting game, the Jaguars against the 72 Dolphins here. Just to run through some stats from the season. Sometimes you're better off just looking at stats and making a pick on the game. Trevor Lawrence is 772 yards, 6 touchdowns. Hurts is 960 and 4 touchdowns. James Robinson, 230 yards, 3 touchdowns. Best running back for the Eagles, 222, 1 touchdown. Christian Kirk, 267, 3 touchdowns. AJ Brown, 309, 1 touchdown. Average points, 28 against 28.7. Average against 12 against 0.16. Yards allowed, 325 versus 323. Average rushing, 130 versus 123. So evenly matched. But yes, somehow the Jags haven't been given a chance in this game by large people. Colin, in fairness, has given them a good shout in the game. I see the Eagles watched the Kobe Bryant documentary last week, and this week they watched the Tiger Woods documentary. I imagine Sunday's game will end in the way Tiger Woods' car ended that day when he was in a rush to get there to do that footage with Drew Brees, and it went off the rails. Like Allen Iverson of the Denver Nuggets when he went back to Philadelphia, and went like Andy Reid when he went back to Philadelphia. Doug Peterson is going to go back to Philadelphia and upset the Eagles on Sunday. Jags to win.
Are you done? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I acknowledge what you're saying there, and I feel that first off, the Jaguars' defense is really, really good to watch. Trevor Lawrence has had a hell of a start to the season, and it's been fun to watch the Jaguars, especially last week in LA. But the reality is, last week they were going up against an LA Chargers team that couldn't keep the offense in the field, so the Jacksonville Jaguars kept coming out again. Christian Kirk, and the combination of Kirk and Lawrence to Kirk is great, and absolutely James Robinson they don't even need Travis Etienne at all at the minute. I mean, it's great to have him, but the fact that he's got, as you said, he's averaging 76.7 rushing yards per game, that's exciting. So on paper, it should be a great game. I mean, Jalen Hurts doesn't just have 916 passing yards, he's rushed for nearly 200 yards as well. The way that his offense is working, the deep threats that he has in Devonta Smith, the fact that AJ Brown's there as well, and you almost forget about him half the time. And the run game as well hasn't really got going yet either. They've got 70 yards average per game with Miles Sanders so far. So I think that the Eagles are in the NFC for me at the minute. I think they're the best team by a country mile. That being said, I think the Jaguars have made such high strides that I don't think any of us seen it coming. I don't think any expert in the States really seen it coming. It's amazing what you can do when a proper head coach comes into the league and comes into your team after the Urban Meyer experience last year, and Doug Peterson should be completely patted on the back for what he's done in such a short period of time, even if he did kick the Irish kicker out, albeit on the practice squad. The Jaguars are going in the right direction. I feel that, personally, I feel that the Eagles are the complete team in the NFC, and I think Column's onto a winner, picking him to go to the Super Bowl as it stands. Now, we're 3 weeks in. That could change by week 6, week 7. If they win this week, I can't see them losing for another month and a half. So I'm taking the Eagles to win this game, and I should have mentioned as well that Mark's picking the Eagles. And it's going to be an exciting game. I think that game's on TV, isn't it, on Sunday?
Yeah, it's on Sky, yeah.
Should be a good one. Hopefully we'll catch the first couple of quarters. Or as my wife asked me a few weeks ago, how many quarters are in this game? This is an interesting game. The Jets going up against the Steelers. Mitchell Trubisky going up against, it seems, Colin, Zach Wilson. Is that the case now? Has that been confirmed after Joe Flacco has had a hell of a start? Probably, I haven't got the stats on me right now at the minute, but I'd love to see where he's ranking in the NFL at the minute in terms of completion rate and the yardage. I've been really impressed with Joe Flacco. Where were those stats a couple of years ago when he was playing in Denver? I mean, Jesus, the man couldn't get the ball down the field.
Yeah, I would agree. Joe Flacco has surprised me because I didn't have any expectations for him. This to me is one of the tougher games to pick because I I see weapons on both teams. I really do, and I know Mark said he doesn't see a huge number of weapons with the Steelers, but I think they have. I think they have Najee Harris, Deontay Johnson, Pickens. I Chase Claypool, not so much, but those other three certainly. But I just Mitch Trubisky ain't the answer, and we don't know about Kenny Pickett, but we know Mitch is going to be starting, and as long as he's starting, they're going to be limited. We'll see some weeks where it might be good Mitch and it might be better than others. On the other side, the Jets in Wilson seem to have a real find there. He looks like a real player. They've got a good running game. And they've been better improving on defense. I can make a case honestly for both of these sides winning it. I actually think Zach Wilson coming back in some ways, it's a really difficult game to come back for. We know TJ is out, but the Steelers are still so impressive. Like it's in their core to get to the QB, and I think it'll be difficult to come back from injury and step straight in. If the Steelers lose this, there've been a lot of talk, if you see online and among Steelers fans, this is must win. They're already seeing this as must win, or it's a completely lost season. And for that reason, I'm going to say it'll be the Steelers. But Jets, I am not writing you off. I would not be in the least bit surprised if the Jets were to win this on Sunday.
Yeah, I agree with Colin. This is a difficult one to call. I think this might come down to the end. It could be a field goal game, could be a late touchdown game. Like Wilson's coming back, and I totally get it. Like they've been very clear from day one. Whilst Flacco's played very well, I mean, it's been abundantly clear. They said the minute he's available, he's going to play. And Mark made the point last night. How do you he's in a bit of a prove-it season, in terms of him being evaluated. He got injured last year. He was thrown in at the deep end, but he's thrown in a bit in the deep end on Sunday again because they've got injuries on the offensive line. They're going to be mixing and matching. George Fant is out. Conor McDermott's going to start, and there's players going to have to reposition themselves to allow him to come in. And to me, that's a concern, and I know what is out to drop off is significant from a Steelers perspective, but there has been some bright spots defensively. Highsmith, 4.5 sacks already for a young player coming in. He's starting to prove himself. There's struggles, offensively. Yeah, Najee Harris hasn't got going, 60 yards rushing last week. He was held in check for large parts of the second half, but Mr. Trubisky for me needs to win this one because I know we keep talking about it. We have mixed opinions when Kenny Pickett will play. We got into it last night as well. If he doesn't win this game and they go 1-3, I think we are going to see a change. If not next week, the week after. But I do think the Steelers will find a way to win the game. It won't be impressive. I think the Jets will be well in there, but just towards the end, I think the Steelers will just find a way to win out.
Mark is picking the Steelers. It's a really intriguing matchup because, well, just first off, in that whole Kenny Pickett situation, I don't personally think he'll play this side of Halloween. I think I said last night something even longer than that, but it's a good discussion to have, and if you want to hear our discussion, you can get it at the end of the Cowboys segment on the podcast if you want to listen back, folks. Just in terms of what I said a minute ago, to column, Joe Flacco, 5th best in the NFL so far in terms of passing yards, 899 through 3 weeks for a guy that I think a lot of people wrote off. And I remember watching the injury that Zach Wilson had in pre-season, and everybody was already going, well, that's the season over Joe Flacco. Their comeback against the Browns was really, really impressive to watch, and one guy that's been very, very impressive for them so far is Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson has had 2 touchdowns so far this season, but the fact that Flacco has found space to target him 32 times is just great. And I'm very much in the camp of what Mark said last night on the Thursday night show. On the Wednesday, apologies. He was saying in the broadcast in regards to if that's what Joe Flacco can get out of this team, what can a young quarterback that can run do? Now, I'm not sure how fit that he is. I would presume that Robert Saleh would not put him in that offense until he was at least 80 or 90% fit. But I feel on the day that you're going to have a Breece Hall breakout game, I think this won't be close, lads. The Steelers are concerning for me, and after all the abuse of not picking the Jets and stuff, I'm taking the Jets. It just makes too much sense to pick the Jets in this game, and I think there's numerous questions to ask for Mike Tomlin and for the Steelers team, but they don't have answers yet because they don't have a solution to quarterback, and Mitch should be given more time. Just hand it off to Najee and see what happens. That's the only way to win this game on Sunday, is if they just hand it off. Hand it off to Najee. Try and get the ball to Pickens as well if they can, but it's going to be Najee. It's going to be the defensive side coming up for Pittsburgh. I think they're going to fall short, and for me, I'm picking the Jets to win on Sunday. Yeah. Okay, it's a full house in terms of the Steelers with everybody else, so I'm the only person going with the the Jets, which is good, I guess, for the crack. Okay, so we're going to look in our next segment at the Cardinals going up against the Panthers. This is, I mean, one quarterback needs to do homework contractually, whereas the other quarterback just needs to do homework in general, because I haven't got the stat on me right now, Colin, but Baker Mayfield's stats, there's some special stat, and he's that far, I'll find it and tweet it out this weekend, he's that far behind every other quarterback in the league in terms of like decision making to it, like some sort of incredible stat that I'll find, but basically they're screwed. Do you agree with that? Even though they they won last week against the Saints.
Yeah, they did. I think I'm not a big believer in what the Panthers have there. Not in Matt Rule, and not particularly now in Baker Mayfield. I'd hope that for Baker's sake, he could make a proper go of it, but I don't think it has worked. And I think unless there's massive improvement, I can't see Baker being there next year. So he'll probably be looking for potentially another gig elsewhere. The Cards have just been they've disappointed, in many respects. At times they flash. We've talked about it, but it's Murray magic. It's not down to the head coach making good decisions. We've seen Isaiah Simmons has been disappointing ever since he went there. They don't seem to know how to really use him. They could absolutely win this, right? Because I do think that the Panthers are struggling at times. And Christian McCaffrey has missed 2 days, though apparently all signs are that he will play. But he's already on the injury report twice, which is concerning. But for whatever reason, the Panthers just always seem to beat the Cards. They've beaten them in their last 6 matchups, including 2 playoff games. It's almost a decade since the Cards beat them. And it doesn't make a great deal of sense, because I think both of these teams have issues. And certainly, I think they both have issues at their head coach, but I take Cliff over Matt Rule. But I'm going to say that for some reason, it continues to be the case that the Cards can't manage to win, and the Panthers do it.
The Panthers have struggled offensively throughout the course of the season, it's fair to say. I know they put up high numbers against the Browns week 1, but for 3.5 quarters, they didn't do very much. They didn't do a lot in the week 2 against the Giants. And once they won the game last weekend, I felt the stats were distorted by a big touchdown to the guy in which they brought him from the Jags and let someone else have a go at pronouncing his surname. He had a 75-yard touchdown.
Laviska Shenault.
Yeah, there you go. Fair play to you. So it kind of distorts from before that, what were very average numbers, and the Saints couldn't move the ball all day. It was more around the fact that defense, the Cards have been outscored 56-13 in the first half of every, over the course of the first 2 weeks. But what I would say is they played against the Chiefs, high scoring team. Okay, the Raiders self-destructed, but the Raiders are deemed to be an explosive offense. They did put up 20 points in the first half. And then last week, the Rams, again, another explosive offense. And fair play, they held them to 20 points. But I think they can do more than enough to hold this Panthers offense. And you see what they've done. Like, I know Murray last week struggled, but he still threw for over 300 yards. He didn't get into the end zone. Hollywood Brown has had 250 yards so far. He's been actually quite a good signing. We were all kind of a bit hesitant whether he was worthy of a first-round pick the night of the draft. And he had 140 yards last week off 14 receptions, so he has a connection from their college days with Kyler Murray. I'm going with the Cardinals. I know Colin is probably right in terms of historic reasons why you should potentially look at the Panthers. They obviously have the Indian sign. I think they're going to correct that this weekend. And the Cards win. And there's a few people who follow our show who are Cards fans that are going over to the game, so it would be nice to see them enjoy a victory in front of their team for the first time.
Hogan's a Cards fan. He's picking the Cards. Mark Cockrell's picking the Cards. Everyone's picking the Cards apart from Colin so far. Yeah, that whole situation with Christian McCaffrey is interesting because there was times last week against the Saints where even though he's had 243 yards rushing this season, which is fifth in the league already, hard to believe for a guy like him. You'd hope that he gets through a full season this year. He he just couldn't get a breakaway run last week to the point of scored a touchdown against the Saints, which was frustrating for fantasy owners, I think, including me. But the thing is, he's only had 13 targets so far this season. So, Baker should be trying to find a way to get the ball to him, or the reality is they're probably really scared of injuring him, which is 6 of one, half dozen of the other. For me, even though Kyler Murray's got nearly 800 passing yards in 3 games, they're so ineffective, it's unbelievable. That being said, their comeback against the Raiders was, as a neutral, for the ages. What a game. What an end of the game. But the play, the decision making out of the pocket from Kyler Murray was just class. But that's like me turning up in the school and doing a test in French that I've revised for, and then I don't revise for the other 5. I've got the Panthers winning this game. I just feel that the Cards can't get it going, and I think it's a massive issue for them. I think that Ron Rivera and Cliff Kingsbury are under pressure in both teams, and I feel that the Panthers are going to get a win. Now, that being said, Brian did mention there that there's numerous people associated to this broadcast that are either like watching, they're Cardinals fans, etc. There's also Panthers fans, and I hope anyone going to the game at the weekend has a great time, and I hope that I'm wrong if you're a Cards fan. But I think Baker will get it done somehow. Get the ball down the field, Laviska Shenault, even though it's pretty poor to watch on the whole, and the Panthers winning for me. Yeah. Okay. We're going to look at this next game, which is the Patriots, my bad, against the Packers. Can I just apologise for the selection or media use this week? I don't know what's going on there. Colin, you're picking the Packers. Now, let's just get this out of here now because it's on the screen. It's my bad. It's a difficult game for the Patriots to go in. Never mind the fact that they haven't got Mac Jones going into Lambeau Field. They did show some signs of promise last week, but whenever they were playing Baltimore, I found that the Baltimore defense, not that we're talking about the Ravens right now, but just generally in terms of the Patriots, the defense for the Ravens just found a way to get at the offense and just get through players. And I don't think they're going to have it easy in Lambeau Field either.
No, I did see a tweet today that claims that Mac Jones is at the facility, and even though he's not practicing, he might play on Sunday, which seems amazing given the pain that he was in, given that we were told it was a severe high ankle sprain, and they were just glad he was avoiding surgery. So I don't know where that report is coming from, but that's certainly out there.
Did you see Bill's press conference? I don't mean about it, but did you see Bill's press conference on Tuesday when he was asked about about Brian Hoyer and about his thoughts on Brian Hoyer? He's like, Brian's a good quarterback. He didn't say anything else.
That's classic Bill Belichick. What you need to do is ask Bill about the history of special teams play or some obscure play from the 1950s, and you'll suddenly get this incredibly elaborate answer about the evolution of long snappers and their importance in the game today. I've gone with the Packers because I didn't believe, and I don't imagine Mac Jones will play, and I just think going in with the backup QB is just too big an ask. A Bill Belichick team, I'm sure that they will make it tough. I think they will run the ball well. I think that's what they'll focus on. But we saw some, I suppose, maybe green shoots of life from the Packers last week. They got the win against the Bucs, and in terms of their young receivers, I think he'll lean into his tight end a lot more, Tanyan, and we're still weeks away, I think, from the Packers offense really getting motoring. But I do think they'll have enough to beat a Patriots team that is struggling and will struggle more. I just don't believe they have the elite talented wide receiver and tight end, and with a backup QB, that'll cost them.
I'll make it very clear now, because if Jones does play on Sunday, people say, "Oh, well, you picked the Packers because Jones wasn't playing and you stopped the second quarterback." No. If Jones is playing, Packers are winning this game comfortably either way. You only look at the Packers' defensive display last week. I know Tom Brady seems a bit off the moment, but it was still very strong. Campbell had a really great game. 14 tackles, stops that 2-point conversion at the end. That game wasn't close last week. They allowed a late drive for the Bucs, but their defense was dominant. It's coming back to life. They were down against the Bears offense, which in fairness has struggled. And for the second half of the Vikings game, whilst Jefferson had a really strong first half, they shut him down in the second half. So they've actually got continuously better since the first half of the first game. And I see the same on Sunday, whether Mac Jones playing or not. They'll have to run the ball. I think the Packers are well capable of handling them. And to Colin's point, we did see a little bit more of improvement, and it's gradually starting to get better. They leaned on the run in the week 2 game against the Bears. They got more expansive last week. Romeo Dobbs had a good game last week as a rookie. Lazard, Tonyan, and even if they didn't rely on the run game, as the game progresses with Jones and AJ Dillon, more than enough. It's a comfortable win for me. Don't see any reason. And I think the betting line is 9.5. I'd be all over that.
Mark's taking the Patriots. So he's not. He's taking the Packers. Hoagie's taking the Packers. Everyone's taking the Packers. I'm taking the Packers. But the thing is, I want to find a reason to pick the Patriots. I don't agree with Messer O'Leary down here. I think if Mac Jones was playing and he was fully fit, it would be a closer game. And I wouldn't like the 9.5 spread on the handicap if Mac Jones is playing, because last week Mac Jones had over 300 passing yards, and he made Devontae Parker and him look like Tom Brady and Randy Moss at one point. So there's many question marks and variables over this Patriots team. I get it. People are going to hate on us for taking the Packers. Like, I have not picked the Patriots once this season, and we're a quarter through the regular season after this Sunday. So I'd like to find a way to pick them. The reality is, like, the Patriots have got question marks and issues on their offense. They don't have the best weapons to throw the ball to, even with Mac Jones there. And for Patriots fans that have been through years of winning, of glory, that sucks, especially when you've got the Dolphins coming up and the Bills coming up, and it's just a cycle. Look at me, I'm a Man United fan. I'm going through it as well, lads. So it's grand, but don't hate me because I'm not picking you. That being said, I don't like the 9.5. Something is just telling me not to do it, and I'm not going to do it. Bet responsibly if you are. The only way in which I can see that happening is if they run the ball. If Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon can run effectively through this Patriots team, which I don't think they will. I think the defense will put up for as long as they can. Maybe mid-third quarter it could start opening a bit. That could be the situation, but I don't feel that Aaron Rodgers has the offensive weapons to get him 30 to 42 points in this game, and that's why I don't like the 9.5 spread. That being said, I'm going with the Packers. I think the Packers will win this game, and
just want to make a point on the spread, and not to get too much of a betting perspective, because if Colin might get lost soon, but the 9.5 hasn't moved, Michael. So when Hoyer was confirmed, or realistically, we know that he's probably not likely was going to play, and the bookies get hold of that. They use the line moves to 12.5, 13.5, because they feel that Mac Jones is more credible as a quarterback. The line hasn't moved. I don't know if that's a reflection on what they think of Mac Jones, or whether it's more a reflection that they think the Patriots will hold their own, but the bookies obviously don't see Mac Jones playing one way or the other as a difference in this game. They haven't changed the odds. They haven't changed the handicap. They think that's a reasonable line. I can see why you think it, but I think they'll find a way to beat them by 10 points at least.
Maybe they have a DeLorean.
Who knows?
In the next segment, we're going to look at an AFC West matchup in Vegas. The Broncos are going at 2-1, joint top of the West with the Chiefs there, going up against the Raiders. The Raiders are sitting 0-3. There are issues. There always are. Let's be honest. There always are. There's always something going on with this Raiders team, Colin. Who are you going to pick for this game? Because I know we've done a separate Broncos podcast this week, and just hat off, just talking generally. You would think that the home advantage in Vegas and the way that the Raiders can play on their day, and the fact that this is now the fourth game for Davante Adams, he's coming into it more. Derek Carr has a lot to prove. The Raiders, regardless of your pick, the Raiders must win this game. Yeah? The season's on the line on Sunday in Vegas.
For the Raiders, yeah, you would imagine it is. I mean, 6 teams in the Super Bowl era started 0-3 and made the playoffs. 6, right? The 81 Jets, the 82 Bucks, the 92 Chargers, the 95 Lions, the 98 Bills, and the 2018 Texans. And the Chargers did manage to do it starting 0-4. So there is precedent there if the Raiders do go to 0-4. This is a divisional game. It's 2 teams who have long-standing rivalry, who hate each other. There is no love lost. And then you add Josh McDaniels into the mix. And there is a whole host of history there. We have seen it again this week. The Williams story coming out telling how he'd never been prepared like he was under Josh McDaniels, and then he found out that they were recording the opposing teams, and suddenly it all made sense. And Tyler Columbus going off with some of his stories. Look, if you were to look at it in some ways, the Raiders, the worrying thing for the Raiders is they have found ways to beat themselves. And that, to me, is not a good sign. It's a concern. If they can get out of their own way, they should be very good. But for whatever reason, it just hasn't worked thus far. The Broncos put in one of the most putrid performances in primetime that you're ever likely to witness, and yet somehow came away with a victory over the 49ers. And I don't know what's up with the Raiders, and it's not making sense to me. And the fact that you've seen numerous drops, the fact that you've seen Adams not get into games, I do not expect this to be a classic. I expect plenty of sloppy football from both teams, but I think that Russell Wilson needs a big performance. The Raiders need a victory. It's one of those, I'd said it earlier in the show, that there were a number of games this week that could absolutely be on the toss of a coin. I'm going to say that the Broncos defense, because Randy Gregory and Bradley Chubb are healthy, and because the secondary has been playing so well, that they do enough, but it is an enormous test for this Broncos defense.
Brian, you've been very high on the Raiders going into the season. What have you thought of them through 3 weeks now, going 0-3? Have your opinions changed, or do you think they'll come good in a few weeks?
I think it's one game at a time right now, Michael. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but the consistency of their offense is not there. The first half against the Chargers in week 1, non-existent, came out very strong in the second half, opportunity to win the game at the end, didn't materialise. Derek Carr was erratic, his decision making was poor. Week 2, 20-0 up at half time. Looked like the game was dead and buried. The Cards were coming off a difficult loss in week 1. No one foreseen that comeback. They melted in the second half. They only scored 3 points. Last week, first half down 24-10 at half time. Come back in the second half, go for a 2-point conversion to tie the game up. They just haven't put 4 quarters of football together. If they do that, I think then they'll start winning games. But right now, you're struggling to see how that's going to come to fruition. And Adams is struggling. He's not getting the yards. He's been double teamed. Yeah, he's had 3 touchdowns in 3 games, and you look at the stats, and stats, they say don't lie, but it does, because he's not getting into the games. Derek Carr had 303 yards last week, 2 touchdowns. Most teams would take a quarterback at those numbers every week, but they're not winning the games. I'm with the Broncos in this game, and again, it's more so because I've been really impressed with the defense. We talk about the Packers defense taking hold of things from halftime in the first game. That's what we've seen from the Broncos as well. Since that first half of erratic play, by and large, they've been really good. I don't think it's going to be as close as Colm suggests. I think the Broncos will win comfortably. I don't think Russell Wilson will have to have an amazing game. I do have concerns with the Wilson situation. Don't think he's as electric as he was in terms of getting out of the pocket. I think that's probably a conversation for another day, and that concerns me, because this rush for the Raiders, if it's on its game, can do damage, and that would be a worry if the offensive line struggles. But I still think the Broncos will find a way to win this game and see it out in the fourth quarter.
Both marks are going with the Raiders, so nice. At least somebody's picking the Raiders for the Irish Raiders fans here. And I can imagine now if Mark Hawker was sitting here what he would say about the Raiders and that offense, so I get it. The Broncos have been very, very poor for 3 weeks in terms of their offensive play and the mistakes that have been made, and I guess that's going to happen when you've got a young coaching staff. But the reality is the buck stops with the play. It has not been good enough on the offense. Russell Wilson just does not look confident. 59% completion rate. People were starting to turn him in the crowd week 2, week 3. The game on Sunday night was brutal from both team standards, San Fran and Denver. That being said, the Raiders have been very, very poor. The way I see this game is I feel that the Broncos defense will come up. I think they'll stop Devontae Adams, and I think they'll get to Derek Carr. That being said, I think the Broncos will win 17-14. I'll say it now. Russell Wilson doesn't throw a passing touchdown in this game. It's rush. And I think if we're starting to have that situation again 4 weeks in, that's a concern. Because if a team is sitting potentially 3-1 top of the West, and that's what's going on, that's a problem. That's a problem down the stretch.
The problem, I think, as well, is if the offense doesn't get motoring or doesn't get consistency and start putting up good numbers, the defense can only hold you in games for so long or throughout the course of a season. You'll come up against a team in a couple of weeks. Like the Colts next week on Thursday night, and right now you could say, in Mile High, that's a Broncos win. But if the Colts were to get the move on this weekend against the Titans and get the offense rolling, and with Taylor there, you're then having to get into a game where you're having to put up 27 points, potentially 24, 27. And right now we can't see the Broncos doing that. But maybe this is the weekend against the Raiders defense that has been erratic as well this season. So it is a prime for a bit of a rebound from the Broncos, I would have thought.
Yeah, massive game for both teams in the West connotations. Raiders 0-3, Broncos trying to get another win. And as Brian said, they've got as it stands, favourable home matchup next week. Let's see how it goes. Sunday Night Football is going ahead as it stands at the time of recording. If you're listening to this, it's a Thursday night. Sunday Night Football, the Bucks hosting the Chiefs in a rematch of the Super Bowl from the COVID year that the Chiefs still haven't turned up to. So looking forward to watching this on Sunday night. Colin, I'm not looking forward to this game at all, mate. I think the Bucks defense will stop the Chiefs, and I think Tom Brady is like a half soggy pack of pot noodle at the minute, and Coca noodles at the minute, and it just makes me hope that this is a classic. But I don't want to get my hopes up anymore because Sunday Night Football so far this season has been, yeah.
Yeah, and this is it's hard to say, that both these teams are sparkling offenses. Obviously, though I like the Bucks will have Mike Evans back, which should make a difference. Though they're really struggling to move the ball. They're handing it to Lenny, but he's not, the yards per carry are just minuscule. To me, on this, it's difficult. It's very difficult to run on the Bucks. But the thing is, the Chiefs don't tend to run anyway, and they don't have good running backs at the moment. And Andy Reid, even when it goes one or two bad plays, he seems to move away from the run immediately, and sometimes to his and the team's detriment. I think though that the Chiefs last week they had it and they messed it up. They beat themselves. The special teams play was just horrific. From the first muff punt to Moore jumping out of the way of the next punt, to the missed kicks, to Chris Jones giving away that absolute killer penalty. I mean, they should have won that game, and what he was thinking, the Mara has He brought in the taunting rule, and I think that's impacted on everything. And I think the whole thing is crazy, but it is there, and players need to realize it. And it's 15 yards, and it absolutely kills you when it happens. So Chris Jones had been having such an impressive game, and if you've seen some of the stats in terms of that have come out this week, he's getting double teamed and he's still performing. But that was a killer penalty. I do think the Chiefs will have learned from that. I think the Bucs still need to get some players back. I'm going to. It's another one. I'm going to say the Chiefs win. Could it be the Bucs? Absolutely, it could. But the Bucs would need it to be a low scoring game, I think, for them to win.
So you look at the Chiefs' first three opponents going into the season, everybody felt they were going up against explosive offenses, and I would give the Chiefs credit more so than teams stuttering at the start of the season. They held the Cards in check. They held the Chargers in check for large parts of the game. Obviously, hit the pick six, and last week against Colts offense, which in fairness has been quite poor for the first 2 weeks. For large parts of the game, they couldn't do a lot, and Brady hasn't done a lot this season. Again, we're still that divided opinion when it's Brady not being 100% committed and he's off his game, his head is elsewhere, or it's just a case that they have so many injuries, the offensive line is not what it was, and they just can't get the ball moving. And I think that's going to continue on Sunday, and I am surprised the game's not being moved, but we will see it being played in Tampa on Sunday, and I think the Chiefs' defense will dominate, and once they dominate, but they'll find ways to keep Brady in check, they'll keep the scores down, and I think it's been a long week for the Chiefs. They really should have won that game last week. I know I was crowing about the fact that I picked the Colts in that game, but the reality is the Chiefs did everything to lose that game. They missed field goals. Kelsey dropped the ball twice in the end zone. They should have had that game done a lot earlier, and they left the Colts hanging around. I don't think that'll be the case on Sunday. I think they'll come out. They recognise they've got to win the game. One of the there's an AFC West game going on earlier that evening. They'll know the impact of that game. So for me, I think the Chiefs are going to win this game.
As Brian mentioned, well, first off, Mark Cockrell picking the Chiefs, Hoagie picking the Chiefs. As Brian mentioned, I have got the Chargers winning this weekend, and you've obviously got that situation where the Chiefs go in, and there's been an AFC West matchup, and the Chiefs, look, they're professionals. They're going to be worrying about themselves. It's week 4. They don't care about the rest of the division as it stands because where they are in the division. But they're going to have a look on that Broncos Raiders game. They're going to want to see what's going on. Never mind the Chargers game. They're the better team. Offensively, defensively, they've got a quarterback that can throw the ball to certain weapons. I'll give you an example. Travis Kelce, for one. I can't see how Tom Brady is going to pass the ball efficiently to Cole Beasley on an offense where, as it stands at the minute, he's only been in there about 6 or 7 days. That offensive style is not suited to his play, so that's not good for him. Lenny will be torn up by the defense. He might get a few runs, but he won't be effective enough to win the game for the Bucs. The only thing that the Bucs can hold on to is the defense. The Chiefs, is their defense going up against the Chiefs, and if they can get to Mahomes and stop him in terms of getting the ball down the field and the safeties play well, then they've got a chance. The reality is it's going to be very, very difficult for them. Like Shaquille Barrett, Winfield Jr. are going to have games. Russell Gage is going to have to go off. Cameron Brate's going to have to go off. And I just can't see it. And I do have concerns about Tom Brady this season. And I feel that once we get to week 6, week 7, we can have a mature discussion about it. If he had the weapons that Mahomes had, okay, but he doesn't, and he's not being protected as well on the offensive line. He doesn't look as mobile, or I've been watching too much game tip or commentary. He doesn't look as mobile or as confident, more importantly, in my opinion, in his play that he has done in the past. And for that reason, I'm taking the Chiefs clean sweep. 5 people going for the Chiefs in this game. Does anyone think the Bucs have a chance at least? Or?
Oh yeah, no, I think they have a chance. As I said, I think you don't want to be betting against Brady, and I think the fact that it's a clean sweep is worrying a little bit. But they just lack the weapons, and the fact that they're struggling to run it is the issue. The Chiefs' defense has been pretty good. You couldn't put the struggles on the defense, and so that's why I've gone into to lean on the Chiefs for this, but I don't envisage this being like a Chiefs blowout or anything like that.
In terms of teams winning, or like one person out of all of us picking teams this weekend, I'll not give away the London pick, but you know, uh, everyone's picked Dallas, everyone's picked Detroit, everyone's picked the Chargers. Hoagie's the only person picking the Titans. Brian's the only person picking the Jaguars. I'm picking the Jets. Everybody else is picking the Steelers. The Arizona Cardinals match is probably the most mixed game of the weekend. Two lads, both Marks picking Vegas, and Monday Night Football is an interesting one, which we'll talk about on Monday night, but we'll talk about that then. Is there any questions or anything that everybody wants to go over before I get my sleep before I go to London in the morning?
Yeah, just an interesting one, and thanks to everyone, obviously, for all the comments that are coming through. It's great to see, and we always do love the fan engagement. But we did have a question in around kind of running backs, and given the importance of running backs and the way in which they set the tone, why don't they get paid, and do they deserve big contracts? Brian, we'll go to you first on that. Given that Saquon is looking decent again this season.
Well, it was a big question for the Giants at the end of the season, what they do with Saquon, because he's going to want to get paid. The reality is, for running backs, there's too much wear and tear on a running back, the tires, the tread, in terms of how much yards, what's expected of them in the games, that you could be offering a player 5 or 6 year contracts, and they could find themselves struggling with severe injuries, and it's more so down to the fact of the level of impact that the guys have. So, and it's such a recyclable business for running backs. Like you see last year, it was Wilson, the 49ers running back, who became officially the first running back this year, only to get injured in week 1 and be gone for large parts of the season. He was a 6th round pick. We've seen players in the past. I think back to Matt Forte of the Bears. He was picked in the 2nd round. Goes in his opening night in the with the new stadium. Goes in, rocks in an 80-yard touchdown, becomes straight away an absolute humdinger of a running back. He had a great career there. Just so many players and so much value in the draft to get running backs in the latter rounds, and they turn out to be great players in their career, that they don't need to be getting the money, the lucrative contracts. And once the players want it, I can understand why the GMs are reluctant to do it, because they've got to make sure that other players, and you've got to make sure your offensive line is paid, your quarterback's paid, wide receivers. There's too many players to go around, and I can understand why running backs don't get paid, but there is a few and far between that really do get the big contracts, and they do deserve it at times.
Michael?
I compare it to having a car and having a phone. I bought a car 2 weeks ago, and I already know from driving it for the last 3 weeks that it'll do me for 15 years, because it's just not using any petrol at all, because it's a hybrid, and everyone knows that it charges itself, and I don't have any issues. And I could have a battery that fails. That's fine. That means, like, for example, a quarterback could break their leg and their career could be ruined because of it. But a phone, your battery goes down and down every day. Your battery life will eventually go. The thing about running back is, we've seen so many examples over the last few years where a running back has a great season, but you can never fully rely on them. Like, look at Christian McCaffrey. Like none of us would put money in him playing the whole season. It's not going to happen. And if I was a GM of a team or a head coach or whoever, I would not be given, unless they're incredible. Like, we're talking OJ Simpson level here, like, in terms of ability on the field. There we go. Took week 4 to get the OJ thing in. I just can't see. I can't see the benefit for a team to leverage a contract over a running back, and look at the whole situation in Dallas with Ezekiel Elliott. The contract situation there is crazy. The financial hit for the Cowboys is too much. So take it easy, bring in a 5th or 6th rounder, and see how you get on. I mean, like, my team, Colin's team, brought in Lindsay for a couple of years and it worked out. He was undrafted. So there's plenty of examples of boys coming in doing well. Now with quarterbacks it's different, and you have to pay them. But that's a conversation, I think, for a different chat. And we can talk about Kirk Cousins on Sunday for 3 hours, maybe. Potentially.
One of the interesting things, and I think you guys have summed it up really well. But one thing that has always stood out to me around the injury piece and how unpredictable it is Frank Gore, the man who played for 100 seasons. Frank Gore tore his ACL twice in college. And then Frank Gore came into the NFL, which is the bigger, badder, tougher environment. Frank Gore was never injured. He was truly Frank the Tank. So a lot of the time it doesn't make sense. But yeah, as you said, the problem is we've seen it with Alvin Kamara. We've seen it with Christian McCaffrey. We've seen it time and time again. Such wonderful talents, but the level of punishment that you take as a running back and where you can bring guys in, that's the issue. But you hate to see it because these guys take phenomenal punishment, and a lot of them really deserve a lot more money than they are getting. But yes, we are at the end of our Thursday night show.
Again, that's it forever. Yeah, that's it. Just pack it in
until Sunday morning at 9:30.
Yeah, make sure, folks, if you're heading over to London, you set the recorders, Ross no Run, Fair City in Brian's case. I'm bringing some tea bags over, lads, 100%, because I'm not using the tea bags in Tottenham Stadium. No offence to Tottenham, but I need to feel somewhat at home. If you're over in London this weekend, you see us, give us a shout, say hello. Brian will be outside Chick King for personal appearances from 12:05. I'm actually going to be there at like 12 o'clock, so if you do see me, give me a shout. I have to do a thing, I have to record a thing. Anyway, looking forward to the game on Sunday. We're live at 9:30 on Sunday morning, give or take, even if it rains. So we will see you then. Gurmy Ogden, and lads, have a good night, yeah? All the best.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. See you soon.